Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the TowSmart Trailer Hitch receiver on a 2025 Hyundai Tucson. When it comes to adding a hitch on your Tucson, there's plenty of choices out there, and really at the end of the day, it's up to you what you pick, but the TowSmart is going to be an interesting choice because it has by far the highest capacities of those available here at eTrailer, and that might be something that you're looking at if you plan on towing. But let's take a look at some of the features. So the first thing, this is a hidden cross tube, meaning the only thing that you're going to see once it's installed is going to be the receiver tube opening and the safety chain loops. Everything else is hidden underneath, so you get a really nice clean look overall. And this one is a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is the standard size really for a lot of accessories out there. So ball mounts, bike racks, cargo carriers, all of those generally are going to be in that 2". Whereas the factory hitch that was originally on here was 1.25", really leaving it to be limited on options. All of those accessories are going to stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. This is not included with the hitch. Many times when you pick up accessories, they'll have them included. And if you get an accessory that you're going to leave on the back of your vehicle long term, like a bike rack or cargo carrier or even a ball mount, you might want to pick up a locking pin and clip. And that becomes a good deterrent for anyone walking by. They won't just be able to take out your pin and clip and take the accessory with them. Our safety chain loops are super easy to hook up, a standard S-style hook or even a larger clevis style if you're planning on pulling a trailer. And chances are if you've clicked on this page and install, more than likely the high capacities led you to it because this one has a gross trailer weight rating of 4,500 pounds. And that's the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it. And there's also a tongue weight rating that's also significantly higher than the other ones out there, coming in at 675 pounds. That's a significant weight if you're going to have a 4-bike rack or a cargo carrier loaded up. That should be more than enough capacity. I don't think you're going to overload that. But as far as the towing capacity, you do want to check the vehicle's owner's manual to see what the Tucson can actually tow and compare that with the hitch, because just because the hitch can hold that capacity doesn't mean that this vehicle should, based on transmission, suspension, and really all of the vehicle as a whole. So check that before you just hook up that weight and go down the road. Now, when it comes to those accessories, you also want to make sure that it's going to interact with this vehicle well. This does sit back pretty far in, which I think a lot of people want for that look, but there are some drawbacks. So from the center of the hitch pin hole to the furthest point of our fascia, I'd say we're about 4.5 inches. And so what that means is some accessories can fold in a vertical position and it may make contact with the rear fascia. Bike racks and cargo carriers are predominantly the ones that you're going to see folded up. And when they're folded, you're probably not going to be able to open the hatch, but you want to make sure that you can actually stow it in that vertical position. So something to keep in mind, looking for one with potentially a longer shank might be ideal. The same goes for a ball mount. A ball mount with a longer shank might make a little bit more sense than having one that's really close to the fascia. That way you don't have to worry about hitting your fascia as much. The ball can stick out a little bit further. If you want to see how some of those accessories might interact with your Tucson, it might be worthwhile taking a look at some of our test fits and you can see how those interact. Now, as far as ground clearance goes, we're on a lift here, so I'll do some quick math. We're looking at 24 inches. That puts us at 17 inches of ground clearance. And that's a pretty solid number overall. I don't really worry too much that you're going to bottom out anything, but when you have suspended accessories like cargo carriers and bike racks and you go up an incline, they will tilt towards the ground a little bit, and so you have the potential to bottom out. Something to keep in mind. But more so, that is going to be a great measurement for determining the rise or drop necessary for your ball mount. So you can measure from the ground to the top of the coupler of your trailer when it's perfectly level, take the measurement that we had, and then compare it. Do some math, and then you'll figure out that rise or drop necessary to get the load perfectly level. With the high capacities and, nice clean look, you're probably wondering about the installation. And I'm here to tell you that this vehicle is very easy to install a hitch on. Now, this one gave us a little bit of issues just because of tolerances. It's pretty easy to manage with a floor jack to be able to get everything up, but it's rather tight. Beyond that, it's very simple. This can definitely be done in your driveway or garage. Give yourself maybe half an hour. You're probably going to need a torque wrench and a 17mm socket, maybe a trim panel tool, but beyond that, it's super easy to do. You should be able to have this knocked out in no time. But I get it if you don't have the place to do it, the time, tools, or even the want to do it. you still probably want to get a hitch installed because it really does open up what you can do with your Tucson. So if that's the case, you can reach out to our dealer locator to find someone close to you to get the hitch installed. But if you're kind of gauging whether or not you want to do it or installing it yourself, follow along. I'll make sure we get our hitch installed. Normally there's going to be an underbody panel that's going to be attached with plastic push pins and then some nuts on the studs here. Since we had the factory installed hitch, that was omitted, and the same goes for when you get a hitch installed. You're going to be omitting that. It's not going to go back in place. It's not going to cause any issues by any means, but clearance of that hitch requires that to be gone. Now, this panel that we have located on the passenger side, you don't have to take it off, but it's going to make it a lot easier to get our hardware in place. So we'll get this removed. It's just going to be 2 plastic push pins, and pretty easy to get these removed. There's going to be slots that will get our tool in place. And that center one should pop out. You can remove the whole thing. We'll get this next one here. And then as you go up, there's going to be plastic nuts on the studs. And a lot of times you can spin these by hand and just kind of pull down. That way that thread actually works itself off. If you really need to, you can kind of just pop these out. So take your time here, but we'll get this panel removed and out of the way for now. What I'd recommend doing is you can just take one of the bolts and make sure that it threads in easy. If you get a little bit of resistance, a lot of times you can spray some penetrating oil in there and use a tube brush and kind of clean that out. But generally, you should be able to get this threaded by hand. If it's severe cases, you can use a tap, but I don't think you're going to have any issues here. So where we're going to be attacking the hardware, one on the bottom, and then there's going to be 2 of them on the side. So one's a little bit further set back than this, and then one's up front. So just run your hardware through. Again, that way when you have the hardware or the hitch raised up, it's a lot easier to feed these in. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I recommend having at least 1 bolt and conical tooth washer ready on each side. The teeth on the conical tooth washer should bite into the metal on the hitch. And you may want an extra set of hands here. It can be bulky, but our goal is as we raise it up, get some threads started on really any of those holes to support it on both sides, and that way you can get the rest of the hardware in place. I might recommend doing the side ones if you can. That way it's going to support it. Those bottom ones, it'll droop. It'll just make it a little bit easier to thread in the rest. So something that you can do is with the isolator and the exhaust, you can pry that off if you need to. It's not completely necessary to do though. It might make it a little bit easier for tightening hardware later on. But as you can tell, just a little bit of a budge of pulling that exhaust pipe down and it should slide into place. So I'll raise this up, get my holes aligned. And then I'll thread my hardware. As I was raising this up, I have some pretty tight tolerances here. So there's a couple ways that you can make this work if you can't get this to pull up. So you can take the whole hitch out. You can put this in a vise and slightly bend it out. You can use, well, we're on a lift here, so we have a trans jack. So if you want to try this at home, you can grab a floor jack and just raise up on the hitch. The goal is if I can get a bottom bolt started, which we're pretty close here, we can utilize that to kind of draw the hitch up into those spots. So I'm going to use my trans jack and just kind of start lifting this up, and it's going to find its spot fairly easily, but by hand this was not really an option. If it's real close, you could probably take a dead blow hammer and kind of hit on it, but I think a floor jack kind of makes it a little bit easier. And then I still have a gap, as you can tell, but at this point I can continue with the trans jack to raise it up, or I can just simply put a 17mm socket on here and start to draw this up before getting these ones aligned. With 1 bolt supporting the hitch on each side, we can get the remaining hardware in place with that same combo with the conical tooth washer. So it should have 3 on each side. With all the hardware started by hand, we can snug it down with a 17mm socket. We're going to come back with a torque wrench. You don't need to get crazy here if you're using power tools. We just want to draw everything in. And what I'd possibly recommend, if you haven't already tightened the bottom, do that one first so it'll draw it up, and then those side ones will hold it in place rather than trying to, get this tight and fight against it. So we'll get these all snug down and then come back with our torque wrench. With that same 17 and a torque wrench, again, you're going to find the torque settings in that QR code. You'll just scan that. It'll have it. You can dial your torque wrench in, and then we'll tighten these all down. Now, if you need a torque wrench, you can get one here at eTrailer. Generally, you can go to an auto part store and rent one for free. But this is going to be an important step because you are going to be towing a decent amount of weight with this potentially, and mostly you don't want to over tighten. Because these are all weld nuts, you do run the risk that if you over tighten it can damage that and it no longer becomes a nice solid mount. So torque wrench will make sure that we get it properly dialed. So we'll just go through, get these torqued down evenly. With all the hardware torqued down, we can put our plastic panel back in place, and all that's left to do is load up your accessories, your pin and clip, and hit the road. Once you get your hitch installed, feel free to leave us some comments of how you're using it. You're using a bike rack, cargo carrier, pull-in trailer. Send us some pictures. We'd love to see it. With that being said, that was a look and installation of the TowSmart Trailer Hitch receiver on a 2025 Hyundai Tucson.